is NBC Palm Springs Special Edition.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Gino Lamont with this NBC Palm Springs News Special Report. A news conference is about to get underway that will finally shed light into the disappearance of Coachella Valley couple Jonathan Darling Reynoso and Audrey Moran. They went missing back in 2017. Our Kitty Alvarado has been following this story since the very first day of their missing report. She joins us now from Palm Desert Sheriff Station, where that press conference will get underway shortly. Kitty, what are we expecting to hear today?
Is that TV in your
Well, you know, they are already all set up here. All the media is here. We're just waiting for the people who are setting it up, the Riverside County Sheriff's Department and the District Attorney, to come in the room and get it started. Now, we're expected to get a lot of information today, not only just the charges, and learn more about the suspects, but also what happened to Jonathan and Audrey since they went missing in May of 2017. This case has baffled so many for so many years, for over 3 years to be exact, and some even losing hope that they would find answers. But Riverside County Sheriff's investigators kept on the case and keeping their promise to the family, telling them that they would solve this case. And it's been a long road. It's been a long road for the families. It's been a long road for these investigators. And again, we're expected to hear from Sheriff Chad Bianco, the District Attorney Mike Hester, and also a couple of investigators, one from the Indio Police Department and a couple from the Sheriff's Department. Gino?
All right, Kitty, you've been following this case since the very beginning. You've gotten to know the family and friends very well. When you saw the names of the suspects that were placed under arrest on Saturday night, were any of those names familiar names to you, names that had been thrown around by possibly some family members or friends of the missing couple?
You know, the names did sound familiar to me. They were thrown around, but again, everything was so speculative, and for so long, because there has been so little information on this case, it was all speculative and all rumors. So yeah, a couple of the names did sound familiar, but family and friends just kept hoping and praying that this day would come when the suspects were found, and hopefully they'll be brought to justice soon. That's all they're hoping for at this point. They, of course, were hoping for a totally different outcome, and the announcement that they arrested suspects for their murder came as a shock and a surprise, because this case went from a missing persons case to a murder case, you know, for us in the media, and maybe for the families. I'm sure investigators kept them up to date and briefed, but there's a lot of questions, so hopefully we'll find some answers today. Gino?
All right, let's talk a little bit about that now. You'd been to several of the dig sites that were going on in Indio and Coachella and the surrounding areas. Most of them we never heard anything more about. In fact, the last dig, where they seemed to spend the most time and left with bagfuls of what appeared to be evidence of something, that one was different than the other digs. Is it being speculated now that they actually came up with evidence in that last dig in Indio?
Well, all of us just assumed that it was connected, and they did find evidence, because that scene there on 4th Street in Coachella was really busy. They took away a lot of evidence, but they never said if it was connected. Everyone just assumed it was. They never said it wasn't, but it's just all speculation right now. I did get to speak to the man who lived there, and he came up with this elaborate story. We'll see if it ends up being part of the story, or if it's just totally unrelated to this case.
Yeah, because you did talk to that homeowner who was shocked by all the attention, and he certainly wasn't one of the ones arrested in this case. So again, it might be a dig that had nothing to do with this. We simply don't know.
Well, I don't know if he was one of the ones arrested. He wouldn't give me his name, but he came up with this big story that he was fixing a pipe. That's why there were holes there. But then when I checked with the city of Coachella, they said, no, that's not true. We didn't come out and have anything to do with what went on in that house. So the stories didn't match up, but he did say since they were digging, he was receiving a lot of attention, and he didn't like it. So I don't know his name. I don't know if he's one of the people arrested in this case, but again, it's all speculation. We will find out today if that house indeed, if there was any connection.
Yeah, we should mention
Now we
again.
see right now Sheriff Bianco is coming in, Mike Hestron, the district attorney, and this news conference is about to get underway. I see a couple of investigators, a lot of familiar faces who briefed us, and I'll let them talk.
Yeah, you guys could just spread out here. Okay, good afternoon. I'd like to first start by thanking everybody that can make it. Thank you guys for coming out. You guys should have by now the printout of all of the names of the speakers, and I'll just go over what I've given you. The purpose of today's press conference is to update and answer questions regarding the 2017 missing persons investigation involving victims Jonathan Reynoso and Audrey Moran. During the initial investigation, the Riverside County Sheriff's Department worked in partnership with the Indio Police Department. Today, our speakers will be Riverside County Sheriff Chad Bianco, Riverside County District Attorney Mike Hestron, Indio Police Department Detective Jesse Moran, Riverside Sheriff's Department Central Homicide Unit Captain Herman Lopez, and also Riverside Sheriff's Department Lieutenant of the Central Homicide Unit, Walter Mendez. So for the rules, I'll just ask that you guys, once a question is asked, if you could please let that question be fully answered before you ask another. And also, if you could turn off your cell phone so we have no interruptions, so we can make this as efficient as possible. And with that, I'd like to introduce Riverside County Sheriff Chad Bianco.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming to the press conference today. As you've already heard, you all know why we're here. Back in 2017, the Indio Police Department and the Riverside County Sheriff's Department began an investigation into missing persons of Audrey Moran and Jonathan Reynoso. The city of Indio took a missing persons report of Audrey, and Palm Desert Sheriff Station took a missing persons report for Jonathan. Several days went by, and their vehicle was located in Beaumont, and since then we have
All right, obviously we've momentarily lost our picture. It sounds like we might be getting it back now. Again, we are at a live press conference with Sheriff Chad Bianco, District Attorney Mike Hestron. We've got the picture, well,
generated from
still a little digitized.
We're doing, but
okay, we're going to stay with this as long as we can technically do it. Again, this is Sheriff Chad Bianco talking about the missing couple and the arrests made over the weekend.
Has served over 50 search warrants in relation to this missing persons case. Obviously, as time goes by and as information is obtained and learned, this changed from a missing persons case to a homicide investigation. As you are all aware, over the weekend we announced the arrests of 3 individuals for the murder of Jonathan and Audrey. Manuel Rios, 28 of Coachella, Abraham Fregoso, 32 years old of Indio, and Jesus Ruiz, 41 years old. He was arrested in Stockton, but he has lived most of his life and he has ties here to the Coachella Valley and Coachella. There were also, I'll wait for questions for that. As I'm sure you're all aware, based on the questions that have been coming through us via email or text or whatever the case may be, 2 of the individuals have been in custody for several months on unrelated charges, but over the weekend, charges were added to them to include the murders of both of our missing persons. And with that, if there are any questions, actually, before any questions, I would like to turn the mic over to DA Hestron, and he will just update on the status of the charges.
Thank you, Sheriff. My name is Mike Hestron. I'm Riverside County District Attorney. I just want to add to what Sheriff Bianco just informed you. We at the District Attorney's Office, we did file criminal charges. The defendants are, as was mentioned, Abraham Fregoso, 32 years old, Manuel Rios, 28 years old, and Jesus Ruiz, 41 years old. Abraham Fregoso, we charged 1 count of Penal Code 187, which is murder. We also added a special circumstance allegation for the killing of a witness. Against Manuel Rios, we charged 2 counts of first-degree murder and also the special circumstance of killing of a witness. Jesus Rios, we charged 2 counts of PC 32, which is accessory to murder after the fact. So if those are the charges, I'm more than happy to answer any questions about those charges if you have them. Any charges or any questions about the details of the investigation, I'll defer to Sheriff Bianco.
Sheriff, I'm kind of roughly new to the case, but can you explain the charge with killing of a witness? Was one of the victims a witness, or was this an independent?
No, it was one of the victims.
Who would that be?
We're not going to. As we continue, obviously, since we have made these arrests, we have received more information about both of the killings. This is obviously going to be an ongoing investigation as we identify possible other persons involved or persons with information. So any details of the crime, we unfortunately will not be able to give you that.
Okay, but it's safe to say that one of the victims, obviously, that has been murdered was a witness to the first murder?
Correct.
Okay.
So Sheriff, I have a question. What was believed to be the motive behind the killings, and if one of them was a witness, does that mean one of them was alive for longer?
Without going into detail, your question appears to be along the right lines of yes, but I won't get into any specifics of it.
Have you found them?
We have found remains. We thought we would be able to get DNA results back before the press conference. We have not done that. So right now we are still waiting on the results of the DNA testing to confirm that it is them. However, the investigation that led us to the remains indicate that we did find them.
Well, you said when and where you found them,
Over the last several days.
and about approximately where, like what city or what county or?
I'm just going to say out here in the valley, but I won't get into specifics.
A couple of the houses that were really busy with activity, the Burr House in Indio, 4th Street in Coachella, I know it was a big dig and a lot of pieces of evidence were taken out of that. Were those related to this case?
Yes, both of those locations were related.
Sheriff, can you maybe elaborate a little bit more on the motive? What was the motive for them disappearing or kidnapped, or I don't know how you want to phrase that, but...
At this point, I'm not going to be able to talk about it because of the information we've got in the last couple of days. We're obviously ramping this up again, and I don't want that information out there other than the people that know.
So how long after they went missing do you believe that they died, that they were killed?
Again, I can't get into specifics, but it wasn't long.
Is it safe to say, Sheriff, they were kidnapped?
In the terms of kidnapping, probably not.
Okay. And just so I can get the story right, because, I mean, if they disappeared, they're not going to disappear without, somebody taking them. So I just kind of want to get it straight,
Yeah, if there was a kidnapping involved, we would have charged with that. So technically, there was no, it wasn't like a random kidnapping and then something happened to them in that sense of the word. So it's a technical thing that I won't get into.
Okay, so is it safe to say maybe that they knew each other? I mean, they were all acquainted?
Yes.
And obviously you're privy to a lot more information than we are. If just looking over at what you know, all of the evidence that you've been told by investigators, how brutal is this killing?
Any killing would be brutal. But I guess what I will say is there are people living among us that don't have the same moral values that the rest of us do. This obviously was not any killing is bad, but this was not a particularly easy murder, if there is one. This was very bad.
Can you tell us when the 3 suspects first fell on your radar regarding this case?
From the beginning, this was a missing persons case. Obviously, we were trying to find anybody that had anything to do with them. So as we progressed through that investigation with search warrants, with interviews, the same names or multiple names keep coming up. And then as you follow up with those and alibis and interviews, the list dwindles down.
Sure. Did any of the suspects you guys have detained at this point have any priors, maybe domestic violence, maybe attempted murder, something like that, that might have led them into this?
No, I don't think there's any crime that can say, oh, they did that crime, so they're going to kill a couple of people. No, there was nothing that led us to that, but they weren't upstanding citizens either.
Okay, so they had some sort of criminal record? Can you elaborate
Yes.
on what they had?
No.
No, okay.
There were a lot of rumors, speculation that came out initially throughout. One common one was that Jonathan was in Raleigh before this, and people were wondering whether he actually was. Did you ever confirm if he was actually in Raleigh the day of or the day before he died?
That's something I can't comment now. With the information that we have with this investigation going again actively, that's something that I won't comment on.
And how about, another question was, how did the SUV get to I-10 in Beaumont? Can you talk about that?
No.
Also, a lot of rumors swirled around drugs, money. Are those along the lines of what you're finding?
We found those same allegations in the interviews that we did in the investigation that we led up to, but we're not. I can't say whether or not that any of that was involved with the murders.
What exactly led to these arrests finally, and what made this case so difficult to finally get an arrest?
This was, in the beginning, this is two missing persons cases in two different jurisdictions that with basically nothing to go on. This, for all intents and purposes at the time, was as close as you can get to an unsolvable homicide, as it turns out to be, but when you only have a missing persons case, it makes it even that much more difficult. So the amount of effort, the amount of work that we put into this with the search warrants, with the interviews, hundreds of interviews, like I said, 50 search warrants served, written and served. This is an enormous investigation over that 3-year time. While I have the camera, I want to not only express my unbelievable condolences to the family, but they were with us this entire time. I need to thank them for their patience as they worked with us through this to get to this end.
All right, you've been watching a live press conference at the Palm Desert Sheriff's Station with Sheriff Chad Bianco and District Attorney Mike Hestrin, as they have now filed charges against 3 people for murder in the case of missing couple Jonathan Darling Reynoso and Audrey Moran, a 3-year-old case that will now head towards trial. We'll have a complete wrap-up of this story for you tonight on the NBC Palm Springs News at 5. We send you back now to your regularly scheduled program.